All right, well, I think we're good to get started. And thank you for all of those who took some time to fill out the poll. Thank you so much for joining us on today's webinar, the Visual Explorer Landscape. Today, we are going to be diving into how to use our new visualization tool, Visual Explorer. And this webinar is designed to give you a solid understanding of how Visual Explorer works. And we're going to do that by breaking it down into its different building blocks, so that you can see firsthand how powerful and how flexible Visual Explorer is to meet all of your specific data analysis use cases. So before we jump in, we do want to introduce ourselves. So hello, my name is Jennifer Spoolma, and I'm the Customer Education and Enablement Manager at Mode. So I'm working on things like Mode University and other education initiatives like this webinar series. And I'm also joined on the call today with Johnny Kelly. Johnny, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure thing. Thanks, Jennifer. Hello, everyone. My name's Johnny. I'm a solutions engineer here at Mode. You may have met me in the pre-sales process or as a current customer of Mode. Nice to see you all. Thanks for joining. I'll be helping Jennifer out throughout the webinar. So if there are any questions that come up, feel free to chime in the chat, and we'll do our best to answer those.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Awesome. So I do also want to mention that today's webinar is the first of 4 webinars we have in our Visual Explorer series. So if you look on Mode's website, there is a registration page where you can make sure you're registered for all of the upcoming webinars as well. And Samara, if you want to send that link in the chat and people can grab that, that would be great. So you may be wondering, why are we doing 4 webinars on Visual Explorer? As you'll see in today's webinar, Visual Explorer is really powerful. And as they say, with great power comes great responsibility. And so we want to be responsible on our part to make sure we're helping you be equipped so that you can take full advantage of Visual Explorer and all it has to offer. So take a look at those upcoming webinars and make sure you register for any that seem like a good fit for you. And of course, I also want to highlight that we do have a bunch of Visual Explorer education resources in Mode University. So this is a link that Samara can also send. And if, when you log into Mode University, you'll see that there's a quick start guide to Visual Explorer course. There's also practice guides to help you build different visualizations in Visual Explorer. And there's also an on-demand training. So make sure to check those out as well. Now our agenda for today. So first, we're going to be talking about what Visual Explorer is, and then we'll make sure you understand all of the building blocks that make Visual Explorer work. We'll build out a visualization from scratch so you can see how that entire process works. And of course, we'll answer any of your questions. So feel free to ask your questions throughout the webinar, and you can use the Zoom question and answer feature, and that way you'll be able to organize all of those questions that you have so we can answer them. So before we answer this question, let's take a look at the poll results from when you were entering it. Johnny, do you want to kind of talk through what we're seeing from our attendees?
Yeah, definitely. So it looks like 73% of our attendees, this is their first time learning how to use Visual Explorer. So first of all, I just want to say thank you all for joining today to learn more about the Visual Explorer. And it looks like most of you all, this will be a great kind of primer to learn what and why the Visual Explorer. So Jennifer is going to talk first at a high level of what is Visual Explorer, but it looks like, Jennifer, most of our attendees, this will be their first time even being introduced to it. So
that's awesome. You are in the right spot. So yeah, so what is Visual Explorer? It is our new visualization tool. So here's what's so cool about it. Visual Explorer is a responsive system that has been built inspired by the Grammar of Graphics. The Grammar of Graphics is the industry-leading framework for making data visualizations that can be used and consumed the way they were intended to be. And so what that means is there is underlying rules for data visualizations regarding what elements are necessary to make a visualization comprehensible, just like how grammar for any written or any spoken language works. So in Visual Explorer, all of these rules or the grammar is baked into how the system works. And so before we get into that anymore, we do just want to kind of gauge what your familiarity is with that concept of grammar of graphics. So if Samir can launch that next poll, that would be fantastic. And while we're waiting for the results to come in, yeah, Johnny, is there anything else you want to kind of say about grammar of graphics or your perspective on it?
Yeah, for sure. So as Jennifer mentioned, this is kind of a new approach that Mode is taking. If any of you all are familiar with Mode, you may be familiar with Mode's current quick charts, which are great for the kind of building blocks for a visualization if you know what visualization you want to build. But if there are different ways you want to slice the data, create faceted charts, things like that, as you can see in some of these examples here, the Visual Explorer will enable you to do just that. And so I think the grammar of graphics is sort of a different frame of mind when it comes to building visualizations. It's really the flexibility that it allows you to kind of create visualizations that aren't the thing that you know you want to build. So if you don't necessarily know what you want to build before you start building it, this is great for that.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, and it looks like 63% of you, this is like your first time hearing about that concept of grammar of graphics. And then 24% are familiar with it, but aren't sure if you've really used it before. And then 13%, you know what it is, you know you've used tools. So that is awesome. And I think that what I would like to say is we don't need to get caught in the weeds about the grammar graphics, as you'll see through our demo. Just know that that is the underlying principles there. But as Johnny said, what this really allows is it allows you to put the emphasis on your data and the story you're trying to communicate with your data, rather than putting the emphasis on the type of chart or visualization you're trying to build. And so this just unlocks a lot of flexibility and puts your data in the spotlight. So with that, let's get into our demo. So first, I just wanted to show you a complete dashboard. And this is a dashboard that Johnny has built with a bunch of different visualization types, all built in Visual Explorer. So I'll kind of scroll through this page. And Johnny, if you just kind of want to point out what we're looking at, that would be great.
Definitely. So at the top, everyone, you'll notice there's a pivot table that's been formatted using conditional formatting. As Jennifer scrolls down, you'll notice there's some data facet charts, slicing the data in multiple dimensions. We also have a few dual axes combo charts, and these are all, as Jennifer mentioned, built with this one system. So it's not like you're choosing which chart you want to build. This is the new visualization system that allows you to do more flexible analysis. I think these next couple are really cool. They slice the data on like 4 different dimensions. Granted, you're only viewing it in 2 dimensions on your screen here, but adding size and color and multiple axes to your chart really gives your data teams the flexibility to showcase data in different ways. We've got crosstab pie charts, multi-dimensional scatter plots, and then this funnel chart built using the Visual Explorer. So
awesome. Yeah, and in today's demo, just so you can get excited, we're going to build out this visualization as well as the pivot table at the top. So with that, and I also did want to mention that this dashboard is built in the community workspace. And so you can actually open this up and look at this. So Samira, that's another link if you want to share it in the chat. And you can always explore these different reports and kind of see how they were built if you want to practice along. So we will open up a new Visual Explorer. And so here I have the data from the Dunder Mifflin data from Mode's public warehouse queried. And when I want to create a new Visual Explorer instance, I'll just click on the new visualization tab and choose Visual Explorer. So if you are used to using Mode, or if you're familiar with our quick charts, then the Visual Explorer interface probably looks pretty familiar. The first thing that we want to draw your attention to over here are the columns and rows. So Visual Explorer's columns and rows, they provide more flexibility than an X and Y axes. And that's because you can add and nest more fields using columns and rows, and you're not limited to charts with just one set X and Y axis. As a general principle, though, you can think of columns up here as the data that you want to display horizontally across your visualization, so similar to an x-axis. And you can think of rows as the data that you want to display vertically, so similar to a y-axis. You are able to drag and drop any of your dimensions or measures over here into any of the drop zones. And we will definitely get into this more with our pivot table example, but for now, as a quick example, if we wanted to compare shipping region by the shipping cost variable, then we can easily do that by dragging the shipping region into columns, and then our shipping cost down here into rows. And then you'll see as we do that, it automatically creates this bar chart. And then it's also always nice to know that you can use this swap axes button and swap your axes. So that's a little bit about columns and rows. Next, let's kind of dive into these dimensions and measures. So the top section includes all of your dimensions, while the bottom section includes your measures. The dimensions and measures that you see here, these are retrieved, the columns that were retrieved from your SQL query. The dimensions are typically discrete values, and they are also colored blue, as you can see. Hopefully you can see, it might be a little small on your screen. And mathematically discrete means that they are individually separate or distinct values. So in practice, this translates to dimensions typically being categorical or binary values. A common dimension that you might see would be like account manager up here. And that's a good example because an account manager represents a person, and each account manager is distinct. So there can't be an account manager that's halfway between one account manager and another. On the other hand, measures down here, they are often continuous variables, and mathematically continuous measures, they can take on any value. So for example, measures such as shipping cost, price, or rating, they can be any value and they aren't bound to distinct category. So, for example, a shipping cost could be $14.97. It could be $125. It could be any number in between or beyond that. Is there anything else you'd kind of like to add about these dimensions or measures, Johnny?
Yeah, I can chime in here, Jennifer. Thank you. So the way I like to think about it, dimensions and sort of like these discrete values, I like to think about buckets. So you can bucket them into certain things like account manager, shipping mode or region, things like that. You can kind of put them into buckets, whereas measures, just like they're continuous, they kind of go on either forever or they don't really have an ending. That's kind of how I like to wrap my head around discrete versus continuous and dimensions and measures.
Awesome. Yeah, and then another helpful way to think about it is when you're trying to decide which dimensions, which measures to use, as just think about what values you want to compare, and those will be your dimensions, by what measurement you want to compare them, which would be your measures. So for example, let's build out a pivot table like the one we were looking at in the example report. And to remove anything, you can just drag it out of that drop zone and you have a fresh start to your Visual Explorer. So in the pivot table, we want to compare quarterly sales by region, by account manager. So to do this, we'll start by dragging our account manager pill into rows because we want our account managers to be displayed vertically. And then next we'll drag the shipping region also into rows. And so you'll see when we add this, now we have our table starting to segment where we have each of the regions displaying for each account manager. Next, we'll add the purchased at variable into the columns drop zone, and this will start to create our columns. When we put it on here by default, this is showing up as a continuous variable. So we'll want to use this caret here and change this. This top section here is all of the different ways the field can be calculated in a continuous nature. And then where it's blue down here is the discrete option. So we're going to change to have this calculated as by quarter in a discrete nature. And then we're seeing our table start to come together here. In order to get the sales data to populate, because right now we just have the filler text, the ABCs, what we want to do is take our measure of price, and we're going to drop this into the layers section on the text field right here. And so what this does is this tells the visualization to display the sales price for each of these pills in our table. Before I move on, any special notes you want to make about this, where we're at right now, Johnny?
Yeah, for sure. So as you can see, everyone, Jennifer's created a pivot table here pretty quickly. And I think the one thing I wanted to highlight here is this layers section. This is a new section that we have in Mode. This isn't something that you're able to access using Mode's quick charts. This layers section is really what makes Visual Explorer very powerful. I think adding multiple layers to your visualization, like color and size, can really make it pop for your audience. I think that's just like how Jennifer added some price to the text field and then the price populated in the table here. I think this is really where you'll notice, as Jennifer goes throughout the rest of this demo, you'll notice this layers section is really powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, and we'll be using it in today's demonstration. But if you have more questions about layers and how they work, just know layers is the focal point of our webinar 2 weeks from today on February 1st. So definitely join that webinar if you have more questions. Now there's two special, extra special fields and dimensions and measures that you'll see. One is measure names, and in measures, there's a measure values variable. These measure values is a field that contains all of the values of all of the measures in your data set. And it's a field that's created automatically by Mode from your data set. So basically this field generates and displays the values of all of the measures present in your data analysis. Measure names in your dimensions is similar, and that's also a field that's created by Mode. The difference between these two is given by the fact that measure names is a dimension and includes the names of the measures rather than the values. So to show you how these are used in practice, let's say that we want to add more data to this pivot table. So currently we're looking at the sum of the sales by quarter, by region, by account manager. If we wanted to add more data, for example, if we wanted to see the quantity of sales by quarter, by region, by account manager, then we could use the measure names and measure values to add that to our pivot table. So we're going to do a little bit of rearranging so that you can see how this works. So we'll start by removing our sum price from the text layer. And what I'm going to do is instead add measure values down here to the text layer. And it says null right now because we don't have any measures specified. So then what I'll do is take the measure names dimension and add that to rows as well. And then in order to, when I added that measure names, a new shelf appeared. So measure values then displayed here. So now I'm able to drop different measures into this measure values field. So I'm going to take that same price measure that we used before, put it into measure values. And then one of the things that happened here is my visualization type changed to line, which is why this looks a little funky. So I'm going to take this and change it back to text. So we have our pivot table back. And now we can see prices displaying. And then if I also wanted to add in that quantity data, I'll add quantity into measure values. And now you can see how it's adding even more data. So now for each region, for each account manager, we have both the sum price, total sales, as well as the quantity of sales displaying. And what's cool about the measure names and measure values is that we can just keep adding data to this if we wanted to. So Right now we have sales and quantity, but I could also add like discount in there if we wanted to see how many discounts were being added. And as you bring more measures into the measure values shelf, it shows up on your pivot table. So it offers a lot of flexibility for what you want to display visually. Any other notes on measure names or measure values, or?
From me?
Yeah, from you.
Yeah, I think as Jennifer noted, noted here, there's different ways that you can leverage measure names and measure values. I think another way is if you want to add more, I forget the name for them, like pills or facets to your chart, you can add measure names. And as you're dropping values into the measure values section, it'll add more layers to your visualization. So I think that's one other piece to call out, is if you want to display like faceted charts, for example, the measure values is great for that.
Yeah, awesome. So we've already touched on layers a little bit, but layers, as Johnny mentioned, they're an integral part of visual analysis because they allow you to add further context and further detail to your visualizations. So what's great about Visual Explorer is that it allows you to have multiple layers in one visualization. And as you can see here, layers allow you to control 4 different elements of the measures in your visualization, so that you have color, size, text, as we've been using in this visualization, and also detail. So to showcase how some of these like color works a little bit different, we're gonna start building a new visualization, that faceted combo chart we looked at, so you can see how layers work in another context. So I'm going to start a new instance of Visual Explorer. And in this visualization, I am going to compare total sales and ratings by quarter, by region. So it's going to end up looking the same as this visualization here. So we'll start by taking the price variable and adding that into rows. So that data is displayed vertically. And then we're going to take the purchased at and add that to columns. And similar to last time, we're going to change this from being a continuous variable calculated as days to a discrete variable calculated on a quarterly basis. And right now it's showing up as a line graph, so we're going to change this to be a bar graph. Next, we want to take the regions and add that into our column so that we have the data displayed by quarter, or by region by quarter. So now we have all of our quarters broken up, and we have this faceted chart now where we see all of the regions for each quarter. Next, we need to add in our rating data. And so we are going to also pull the rating data into rows. And when we do this, it creates 2 panes here, like 2 visualizations on top of each other. So to bring them into a single view, what we'll do is use the dual axis feature, which you can find by selecting the caret and then choosing dual axis. And what this does is it brings them into the same pane.
Pain, that was the word I was looking for, Jennifer. Pain. I said pill.
Oh yeah, pain.
Word.
And then you can't really tell that there's 2 different visualizations here because they're both bar graphs. And so what we're going to do is in our layers section, we're going to select the rating data, and we're going to change this from a bar graph to a line chart. So now we can see that there is, multiple views of data in the single pane. And then the other thing that we want to do to get this looking the same as the other visualization and communicating the same thing is we want to change the rating, how that's calculated. So right now we have the sum of the ratings, but we can change it to be calculated as the average of all of those ratings. And then we're getting over here on the right, you can see the rating scale and then how the ratings, I guess what the ratings were the average of the rating for each quarter there, or each region for each quarter.
Jennifer, can I jump in for a
Yes.
second? So as Jennifer's going through this, one thing I just wanted to highlight here is this is a little bit different than our quick charts, right? So this allows folks to build stacked bar graphs, faceted bar graphs with line charts, segmented out by different time series. And the kind of benefit there for you all who are using Mode every day is the ability to kind of leverage different flexible visualizations to your end users. And as Jennifer's kind of showing here, you can have multiple measures on the same pane, right? So you can have these ratings with your sales data all kind of together in one place so that folks aren't having to jump between different visualizations. Let's say, for example, when they go to explore the visualization, they have all of the measures right in the right place that they want to do. And so as Jennifer's going through this, just wanted to highlight that. I think it's really a powerful new way that folks can slice their data. And in this particular case, this is a dual axis chart. In the past, we were only able to do bar plus line graphs with our quick charts. So if you did want to add things like color, which I think Jennifer is going to do next, that's another, just another game changer in Mode today.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Yeah, so let's add that color. So right now, it's not, we have the names of the regions down here at the bottom, but it's not like immediately clear that these are different regions by quarter. And so if we want to make that pop a little bit more visually, what we can do is add color to our regions. And so how we would do that is take that shipping region dimension and drag it into the color layer. And then automatically it will assign the different colors for each region. We have our legend displaying over here to let us know what color indicates which region. And you do have flexibility over the colors that display. So if you wanted to change these colors, you could click on the edit colors icon here. You can choose from any of these different color palettes. So there's dozens and dozens of colors you can choose from. So if I like this color scheme and I want to change Midwest, to be more of this red color, I would choose the Midwest and then choose the color I want and then apply and close. And now all of my Midwest colors have changed to more of that red color than the green. And I could do that for all of the colors so I get the right customizations that I want. And that's just another example of how layers work using the color variable. So once we have our graph looking like this, we have all of the data in place, and now it's just time to get our visualization ready to be viewed and consumed by the people we'll share it with. And so we're going to use our format options to do that. So over on the right-hand side of the screen, you can select format here, and it's going to open up your format options. You are able to edit the axis, the pane, the legend, and the header from your format options. So to do so, you need to select the data that you want to edit. So I'm going to start by editing the quarter purchase stat information up here in my header. And so what I'm going to do is override the title, and I'm going to give this the title of quarter by region. And then you can see that that updates the title right there the way I wanted it to. And then if I choose the shipping region, in this case, I can just uncheck the show title box, and that way it will remove that extra information from my header. So now I have a nice looking header on my visualization. And then since the shipping region data was also being used to power the color and create the legend here, I can also edit my legend. So right now it's in the auto position, but if I wanted to change it to be at the top, I could do that. And now you'll see it's displaying up here. And I want to change that title as well, so it looks cleaner. So I'll just call this region. And there we have it. Next, we'll edit our sales data over here on the left-hand side. And so we'll change the title to just be sales. And then the other thing that we can do is change the number format. So since we're looking at sales data and dollars, we can change this to be displayed as currency rather than just numeric number, rather than just numbers. And so when I change it to currency, then it shows up with the dollar signs and we can tell that we're looking at sales data. And then finally, the rating data. So we will update this and just say rating. And there we have it. All of our formatting is done. Oh, we can also add a title here. So I'm just going to copy this title real quick. Add in our visualization title, and then we are ready to add it to our report. So when you have a visualization complete and you want to add it to your report builder, you'll just use these 3 dots to the side and click include in report builder. And doing so, you'll get that little blue check mark. So you'll know it's in the report builder. And then you can start customizing and the layout of your reports from your report builder right here. So Johnny, do you want to add anything before we open it up to questions?
Yeah, I can add a few things. So as Jennifer's kind of pointed out here, and for those of you, it sounds like 73% of you are new to the Visual Explorer. So if you are familiar with Mode and you haven't checked out the Visual Explorer, highly recommend you check it out. I think a couple things to note here is, and I know I keep going back to the quick charts and the old way of Mode, but just want to highlight this colors section first is a lot more powerful than before. So you have the ability to manually change color assignments. Previously, you had to dive into the HTML editor and know how to use JavaScript to do this. So this is a big change just directly in UI where you can just click a button and update a specific measure here. The second thing I want to call out is this format tab. So Jennifer just went through it, but I think this is a lot more, it gives you a little bit more flexibility than the quick charts give you in formatting your visualization, because you can select specific measures and like in your rows and your columns, and you can get a little bit more specific on what you're trying to showcase to your end users. And I think that's just the second thing I wanted to call out there. The third thing I wanted to say is before we jump into questions from you all, I just wanted to highlight in Mode for paying customers and customers in trial, if you do have questions on the Visual Explorer, we recommend you reach out to our support team. So it's that blue question mark on the top right-hand side of Mode. So Jennifer, if you want to click that, we can just show them. If you click that chat with us button, everyone, you'll be able to talk with our support team if you have specific questions on the Visual Explorer. Now, we're more than happy to answer any questions on this call, but just wanted to highlight that first. And the other thing is, oh no, I'm drawing a blank. I think the last thing I wanted to say is, I can't remember. It'll come back to me. Jennifer.
It'll come back. Okay, awesome. Yeah, so while we are waiting for some questions to come in, we do have just one more poll for you. So if Samara, you want to launch that last poll, we just want to know what was most beneficial to you, what you found most interesting in today's webinar. And then we can get into some questions. So of the topics we covered in the webinar, which did you find most interesting? Seeing how flexible columns and rows are, how to use dimensions and measures in a visualization, the pivot table demo, seeing layers, or the format options demo. So And then, yes, I see there is a question about a recording will be made available. So yes, a recording of this will be made available. It will be on Mode's website, and it will also be posted in Mode University. So you can find it there. And then it looks like we have a couple other questions that Johnny's been answering via text, but we can maybe answer a couple of these for everyone live as well. So is it possible to add dates to visuals in 2 different levels, such as month and then quarter, and allow users to toggle up and down between those options?
Yep. So I answered this one in the chat, but just for everyone else's context here, users who are viewing a visualization on a dashboard have the ability to click that plus or minus button at the bottom left of the visualization to change the date granularity of the chart. So if the chart, for example, displays quarter and you want them to see it by month or week, they can click the plus icon to break out the visualization by week if the data is at that granularity. So that's one way they can accomplish that.
Awesome. And then, so looking at our poll results from that last one, it looks, so 46% thought that the layers was the most interesting. And so, yeah, big plug for the webinar 2 weeks from today. You can see even more about layers and how they work. And then after that, everything else was pretty much a mixed bag of what you found most interesting. So I think that is good reason to just check out the other webinars in the series and see which one, which ones, or if all of them might be interesting to you. Okay, we have another question here. So I see that dual axis can bring 2 rows together. Is it possible to add more than 2 rows together? Do you want to answer that one, Johnny?
Yeah, for sure. So if folks want to add more dimensions to their visualization, so I think the ones that Jennifer showed were dual axes visualizations. If you want to add more dimensions on the same pane, I would recommend the best way to do that is to leverage the layers section. So to add a measure into either color or size, that'll add another kind of, for lack of a better word, layer to the visualization or dimension. So it'll showcase the visualization in a different way in that same pane if you wanted to add more than 2 to the same pane. Now, if you add another measure on top of that, you can always add as many panes as you want to a visualization. So that's just another plug for adding panes. And I'm glad we finally figured out that word because it was escaping me earlier. So thank you.
Awesome. All righty. Well, I think that, oh, we got another question come in. Okay. Is the plus minus sign available for view in the Visual Explorer when you're creating the visualization? I'm trying to look for it and not sure if I see it. Okay, let's go back into our demo. So Johnny, do you want to kind of recap what you were talking about there?
Yep. So what I was describing is on the view mode of the report. So if you go view this dashboard, Jennifer, we can, yeah. If you wanted to increase or decrease granularities, I think these are all, none of these visualizations have the data displayed in the way that we need it. I think these are all discrete. I think we need a continuous visualization. So you would be able to do it if the x-axis was a continuous date. I don't think we have any of those. But Kathy, to answer your question, the plus minus sign, the best way to do that, Jennifer, if you go back to the building section of Mode, if you want to change the granularity, all you would have to do on the top right, if you go to columns here, Jennifer, and click that quarter purchased at. So this is where you would change the granularity of the x-axis. So we have this as the column. So if you want to break this out by month, week, and Jennifer's kind of showing you how to do that here. So this is the best way to do that. If you want it to be continuous, Jennifer, if you want to show just month on the top there, you can show this continuously too. So this is just showing it. I think it's broken out by region at the top. So if you want to drag region out, Jennifer, and we can just show what this would look like. So this is how to change the granularities without that plus minus for you there, Kathy. thanks for the question.
Yeah, great question. All right, well, it looks like we've answered all of the questions. So thank you again for joining us, for all of your questions and interactivity with the polls. And we look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks at the next webinar. So, thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining.
Yep, bye.